Oh, Pearson gets into the 95 of Bolts. Here comes the caution.
Flag is dropped here at Daytona, and away we go for the first time. Nicholas Porcel, Sean.
It looks like most get through unscathed. Look at that, there's Reed Gibson. A big move at the inside line of Doms, possibly a little bit of contact.
Now, as we've got three wide action going through turns 1 and 2.
And they're underway. Eric Hahn takes a nice jump. Wilson hasn't let him go very far.
Go out here for Circuit Spa Francorchamps. Alex Johnson's off to a brilliant start there.
See just how oddly shaped this one is. We saw in the background Eric Hahn go for a bit of a swing, and he's gone and he's over.
New stuff. Cody Graham's the one-on-one up into second place. Alex Johnson 6/10 lead at the moment.
They're dicey up front. There's Andrew Kessel, Justin Sang.
They are ready to go. The lights are out, and away we go for the very first time here at Okayama International Circuit. Finley Fitzsimmons.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to the Crown Jewel event of the Just 2 Idiots Cup Series Endurance Series. I am your host, Gareth McAllister, bringing you the action in 1080p and 60 frames per second if my Australian internet can manage to hold it together throughout the majority of this 2-hour endurance event here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. I may or may not be accompanied by another fellow broadcaster and fellow friend, James East, up here in the booth towards the later half of this event. Unfortunately, is delayed in a flight from Michigan over to Indianapolis, but I will be here in the meantime to keep you company for the first half, at the very least, of this amazing event we've got here for you tonight. Now, as we are having qualify just coming underway right now, we're going to take a good old look-see-loo. Let's take a follow along with Garlic Dog. And he's in a very spangly looking dark Corvette, and it looks like he's got quite a few sponsorships on the front of that, leading me to a great segue that I've just conducted of telling you that this entire series is brought to you by Designers Home Gallery, sponsoring the entire endurance series this year, or this season. For over 2 decades, Designers Home Gallery has been saving the world from ugly floors, and now they're saving from ugly racecraft as well. If you're passionate about racing, check out the services provided by Designers Home Gallery and Just 2 Idiots Cup Series at J2ICS.com. Now, I have checked out their website, and they've got quite a bit to offer, mainly just letting you know what they're doing, what they're up to, what is going around on track. But at the same time, this group of guys has amazing, amazing camaraderie, with it being around for all drivers and all people who are passionate about racing and wanting to get involved in something. A fantastic series to get involved in, that is for sure. Now, we're still following along with Garlic Dog as people are finally setting the start of their times out here tonight. We got Eric Fox in the booth already, in the spectator area, I should say, cheering on the broadcaster, so thank you very much, Eric Fox. As always, let us know who you're cheering on, who you're rooting for in the spectator area on the YouTube side of things, and we may get a little bit of a spotlight on them, see if we can tell you where they're running, how they're looking, and all the rest of it. As it looked like Garlic Dog may be moved out of the way a little bit from one of those drivers just behind. We'll see if we can get a look at who that was. Might have been Void, and it was Void just behind. I'm not sure really moving out of the way, but that leads me into another segue. Look, we're all full of segues here tonight, as we let you know that Void is actually the sponsor for tonight's event. And we are going to be calling it as... There we go. It is the bear with me on this one, because I've told the guys, I will try and not butcher this. It is the Circle City Hoosier Tenderloin Classic, sponsored by Void. So, hopefully didn't butcher that one all that bad, as qualifying is still well and truly underway. Our driver standing so far, Scott Dickinson well out in the lead in first place, followed by Tonlo in second, and Simply Steve wrapping up the top 3 places at the very moment. We also have our team standings with Upfront Motorsports with You-Know-Who and Joshua Spears coming up with the top spot so far. Only 13 points behind them, Speed Squad with Simply Steve and Eat My Dust. And following in their wake in a third, all by his lonesome, representing his own team of SimCity Racing, is Scott Dickinson himself, or Sean Dickinson, sorry. I've said Scott so many times, and I think I'm just getting him confused. And as we pan the camera over to Dickinson, I sincerely apologize, but I keep on getting him confused with Scott Dickinson, the V8 supercar driver. Not even sure he races anymore, but he definitely was when I was young and looked up to him a fair bit. And in the online sim community, definitely looking up to Dickinson as well, as he is putting on a show every single time he steps into that Porsche 911 RSR. And he knows how to put in the work. Our fastest times in the practice sessions were Simply Steve with the first 2 fastest times of each practice, and Nodovan with the fastest time in practice number 3. All of those drivers getting around the mid to low 121 mark, and it looks like Dickinson with a 121.05 is setting the pace at the moment. But as you can see there, not too many drivers far behind in terms of lap times. As we pull up the full lap time for you there, it will keep getting updated as these drivers go around the circuit, maybe put in a new fastest time. You can see Eat My Dust pretty much matched his time perfectly last time around. And speaking of Eat My Dust, we might go on board and take a run with him. So hopping that curb there, Eat My Dust very much on throttle. This is a very on throttle heavy track here at Indy. Ever since the update in 2014 to change it from the old layout to the new, drivers have been very split. I've heard some say that they absolutely love the changes, and I have heard some to the other end of the argument. I, for one, do not mind all that much until we get to this final section here, which Eat My Dust is just heading towards, and spins it perfectly, proving my hatred for this part of the circuit. As he does a little bit of a smoke show for us, Garlic Dog coming through. Nicely avoids Eat My Dust there as he takes a toe to think about what he is going to be up to next and try and make a nicer go of it in the next around about 6.5 minutes to go in qualifying. And don't forget, this is the Crown Jewel event, so we have a 2-hour race here for you tonight. We've got about 22 cars showing up. It's going to be Eric Fox letting us know that Eat My Dust is going for the Arrive and Drive Championship. Certainly is arriving and driving, spinning around as well, but he will get that one sorted out. I did hear him just briefly before qualifying started, just having a little bit of a tinker in pit lane with the wing on the back of the machine, trying to get it up to Simply Steve. And what his setup is, trying to eke a little bit more speed out of that machine. As Simply Steve backs off the racing line, we're going to take a look at Joshua Spears now. Currently sitting in the 4th position. Now, I believe Joshua Spears is currently one of the drivers who is fighting for that coveted third place spot in the driver's standings. Never mind, that is you know who. He's actually in 5th, but also not too far out of it either. So I'm not too far gone when it comes to standings-wise overall, and it's definitely going to be something to talk about with where the drivers finish up in the individual championship as well as the team championship. As remember, this is the 8th and final race of this endurance season to bring an end to a very good season in the early goings of 2024 and the later part of 2023. I hope you've all had a very merry January. I never thought I'd say that sentence out loud, but it didn't actually sound too bad. Kind of rolled off the tongue in a pretty nice way. As we might go a little bit further up, let's take a look at where Nodovan is running currently. In the 3rd position, yet another Corvette on track. And he's in the final section, so we might turn it up and watch him go around the track and see if he can improve on his best time. So we'll see if he was able to get up a quicker lap time, and it does not look like it. I think just barely missing out on that run. Looked like he may have missed a couple apexes, maybe turned in just a little bit early for a couple of those turns. So maybe just missing the mark ever so slightly, but it is such a fine line here, as well as everywhere we've gone basically in this event, so in this series so far, as we have a look at Nick Beaver in the only Ford GT that has showed up to this race tonight, and he has a little bit of a lockup in the blue oval, so that is going to ruin his lap time, and he's going to have potentially just one more shot at a run. He's gonna make this a do or die scenario lap. So if you're just joining us, welcome once again to the Just Two Idiots Cup Series Endurance Series, as we are getting ready to wave the checkered flag and start this event. We've got just under a minute to go before the grid. Drivers will get themselves sorted out as we run through the starting order for this one. And then we will have 2 hours of non-stop action for you tonight. I hope you're having a swell evening and looking forward to it just as I am, as we may have another guest commentator join me up here in the booth in the later half of this race. We've just hit the qualifying time, so that is it, as it looks like Sector was not wanting to make one final dash, and he brings it down pit lane. Going to see what can happen. Beaver is the final one out on track in terms of where they are right now. Prince Adam's just about to finish their lap. We'll see where they can end up, increasing on their time. And yes, it looks like they did. Maybe moved up a spot as well. Ahead of Buck. And there's a little bit of a lock, a little bit of a loose action from the rear end of the Ford GT. And that is going to hurt Nick Beaver's time. Definitely an arrive and drive driver, as we were talking about earlier on with some of these guys. Definitely the kind of driver who shows up, starts about mid-pack, and puts on a bit of a show trying to run through the field. But we'll have to see how this one plays out. Here is Prince Adam, the final driver on track right now. Thought they wouldn't have had another go, but it looks like they are going to get one more lap. What will it be, and will it count is more the question. That was after the timing screen, and it doesn't look like it will count towards his progression up the ladder. So I think he will be stuck in the 17th place starting grid for now, as we get ready to juice them all once again. And the lights have absolutely gone out here at Indianapolis. And we are starting in absolute darkness all of a sudden. That adds an entire new dimension to the mix. Some of these drivers flashing their lights, letting you know that, hey, look at me, I'm over here. And we may take a look at them in due time. Another car guy, Captain CK, joining us in the spectator area as well. Welcome as we run through the grid. So Sean Dickinson, I almost did it again, starts off on the pole position, just like Scott of a similar namesake. Donovan actually progressed into the second spot, just beating out you-know-who. So our fast Canadian friend still sticking his nose up in the championship. Joshua Spears in the fourth position, starting alongside you-know-who, the two teammates. Eat My Dust in the fifth spot, with Void in the sixth position. Nice to see him out on track. We have been missing him the last couple of weeks. Simply Steve in the seventh position, not the qualifying showing that he was looking forward to, as he was showing quite a bit of pace before at the top of the show in the early goings of practice, but unfortunately not able to pull it off as we come to the race. Bozak in the eighth position will start alongside him. AJ in the ninth spot with the undesirables, with Nick Johnson in the 10th position alongside. Sector in the 11th spot with Nicolator, our good old friend, in the 12th position. As we cycle the grid on back, the 13th spot, Garlic Dog, everyone's fan favorite and Rookie of the Year twice running. Will it be a third time? We'll have to wait and see. Nick Beaver, the arrive and driver, in the 14th spot. Spring Flower, the absolute French Marvelous man. I don't know where I was going with that one, but he is starting in the 15th position. Book in the 16th position is there as well. Prince Adam in 17th with Biker Pilot in the 18th spot. Crew in the 19th place with Paper Bag starting in the 20th spot. Far South in 21st. And Joe Albanese will be rounding out the grid in the 22nd spot. I do believe that Springflower and Nodovan are not actually on the grid at the moment, so they may be starting from pits or choosing that they did not want to partake after all. But we'll get ready for this race to get underway, and the lights are out, which means the colors pop in the lights. And have a look, when the driver's lights hit those paint schemes, the colors really come out and shine on their own, and it is fantastic to see a few J2ICS logos there as well as we follow along. Always fantastic to see. You can see the drivers wiggly wobbling, zigging and zagging, trying to get some heat into those tires before we have a go at this one. The old Mustang pace car has been brought out of retirement to come around here one more time before the Endurance Series is over. Zazie Zuhair joining us up in the booth. Megan Marley as well. Maley, excuse me. Sam Renner also joining us. Does the winner get a pork tenderloin sandwich? That is a very, very good question. And I'm inclined to say yes. That's what I'm inclined to say. And tell you what, if I'd be driving, that's certainly something that I'd be looking forward to. Who needs a trophy? You got a real nice sandwich as the pace car turns off down pit road. And we get the field ready to go racing. The outside line not as nicely tightly formed as the inside, and we are underway. Dickinson has a very nice jump out in front. He can choose which lane he wants to block. Goes the inside, goes the outside. Inside once again. He's going to stay there. Now he might choose to dive it in. And it looks like it's all going to be uniform behind a little bit further back. Everyone gets through cleanly except for who gets spun around. We've got Book, we've got Paper Bag also involved in an incident. Something has happened a little bit further back. But otherwise it looks like most of the field able to get through that one fairly clean. Have a look at what happened to who. As it looks like just caught a bit too much curbing, lost the rear end. And then as Book was coming through, lost the rear end as well. Everyone trying to check up, and a couple other drivers getting involved, unfortunately, in that one. It looks like so far, apart from those couple of small incidents up front, everyone else is in a nice tight uniform pack. And Simply Steve is looking to make a move on Void here for the 4th position. And what is that gaggle behind them? Absolutely unbelievable as we continue to watch this just for a brief moment. And we cycle back to this mess. Ooh, Nicolator, Sector, Beaver, Garlic Dog, all were under a blanket for a second, and even continuing a little further back. Garlic Dog goes for a little bit of a wild ride. He was doing oh so well. Practicing very hard, gets in the way of Joe Albanese, who is not going to be happy about that one. Bit of a miscommunication between a couple of the drivers, but thankfully everyone's able to get through without too much of a problem. And here comes Book charging up the inside line. Not going to be able to make it stick, though, against Scarlet Dog. We go back up a little further to the 5th position. Heading into this ever tricky final sector. Simply Steve and Bozak. Steve does have the position, though, and keeps it in front of Bozak. As this is a very difficult race to see right now, as the lights are very, very, well, they are shrouded in darkness. I can't say much more about that, as Bozak goes for the position on Simply Steve and does take 5th away. Simply Steve gets checked up. Will Johnson be able to follow through? It does not look like it, so he's going to stay in 7th for the moment. And this is getting interesting quickly. It looks like we had another incident on track. I believe that might have been Bar South. We had a bit of a moment. And Book has all of a sudden come down pit road. So a lot of interesting developments already happening in the Crown Jewel event tonight. Eric Fox letting us know that the sun will come up soon, so that will be great to see. I always love a night race that turns into day. Something about it, I guess it's just different from seeing the usual day turn to night cycle. Just a little bit of a nice difference, spices it up just a little bit. And that does mean as well that the track will get hotter as the race continues on, as opposed to what these drivers are ready for, the race getting cooler, which also means the tires will get hotter and be hotter for when the track gets up there in temps. So it's gonna get a bit loose. A bit loosey-goosey as we go throughout the later part of this track. But for now, it should be fairly cold and nicely contested, as I believe that was Beaver just letting Sector know that he is happy to go by, or deciding that he's not going to let him go by. It's going to be a very close battle between the two of these drivers for the 9th spot. Oh, Beaver to the inside. It looked like Crew was trying to get involved as well. Couldn't make a pass, but Sector did make it past Beaver. And the gaps in the front end of the field are starting to show a little bit. Beaver and Crew and Sector all having a little bit of an issue. The ultimate winner in this one. Have a look right out front. That is, excuse me, that is Prince Adam. I was thinking it was Nicolator for a second. Hard to see in the darkness. People flashing to show their displeasure. 3 wide action on the front straight. What is happening? This is absolutely crazy. As the nighttime woes just continue. Take a look at that one just briefly again. So we're watching Sector, as I believe he had a little bit... Oh, might have got a bit of help there actually from Beaver. I think he might have done. And that is certainly... Oh. Alright, we won't show that anymore for fear that it will compound. 2 drivers looking to get all they can. And unfortunately, it is sometimes hard to know exact distances of where your car ends and the other one begins. As it looks like Nodovan now takes over the spot from Prince Adam for the 9th position. This 9th position has been the most contested spot of the race so far, proving itself to be the position that everyone is vying for. You can't stay away from Sector and Beaver, who find themselves next to each other once more. Sector, who's just behind Beaver, who finds himself just behind Crew. And we might pan the camera up front just a bit, because have a look at this. Eat My Dust has Void right on the back bumper. Simply Steve right there. Bozak is in the mix. Nick Johnson is not all that far behind either. As so far, two Porsches lead a stream of Corvettes with a little sprinkle of Ferrari mixed in there. And Crew has lost both spots to Beaver and Sector, potentially knowing that those two are locked in a bit of a dead heat and not wanting to get too involved. So pan back the camera towards the front because Void is looking to make, or looking to have the spot taken away, I should say, from him by Bozak. Nicely done by Bozak. No, coming into tonight, Simply Steve has to make sure. That looked like a very close call between Void and Simply Steve there for a minute as well. A lot of chat in the spectator area, which is absolutely fantastic to see. Always a nice show gets put on by these guys in the J2ICS Cup Series. Of course, C and S in that acronym stands for Cup Series. So I don't know why I said it twice, but hey, it's so nice you say it twice. Got myself out of that hole. Alright, as Void continues to be stuck in the middle with you, with Bozak just in front and Simply Steve just behind. Bozak right on the back bumper of Eat My Dust as well, just ahead. Prince Adam losing a spot. Did AJ have a bit of a spin? No, I don't believe so. He just lost a spot as well to Nicolator. And this battle is going on. You can see where all the battles are coming from. Look at the intervals. They are all over the place. Prince Adam has just taken over that 10th place spot from AJ, and they're still battling side by side. We're going to have to pan away to look at these two BMWs as they continue to swap places. It looks like Prince Adam may have the better of AJ right now. But here comes AJ trying to find a way around. There is not a whole lot of room, despite this being a giant circuit of 2.6 miles. It can get quite narrow in a couple of these corners. And here is the pass. Bozak has made it over Eat My Dust down the straightaway. Simply Steve just behind, having a little bit of argy-bargy maybe with Void. And Nodovan sets the fastest lap of the race in the 8th position with a 1:20.7. Absolutely phenomenal lap time. Eric letting us know once again what we said earlier in the show. But Steve, Simply Steve, you know a who, and Joshua Spears all locked in a very, very tight battle for third in points in the driver standings. That must be said. So the team standings, we've got battles all over the place for the teams. Up front, Motorsports with You Know Who and Joshua Spears just ahead of Simply Steve and Eat My Dust in Speed Squad. And then you got a battle between SimCity Racing and Love Seat for third, which is Dickinson fighting it out with Love Seat, which will be Beaver and Captain CK, who unfortunately has been AFK away from his rig. I guess that would be AFR, but, you know, as he has been doing other things involved with work, I presume, as Bar South was looking to make a move on Paper Bag for the 15th position. Nothing doing, though. As we pan the camera a little bit further up, back to the battle once again. Eat My Dust and Void. So Simply Steve has made his way past Eat My Dust. Potentially a little bit of team orders there, as Simply Steve is the one fighting for third in the driver standings, and Eat My Dust being his teammate. Both of them wanting to finish very strong, especially with You Know Who having that problem early on, as Joshua Spears is trying to be the tip of the arrow for Upfront Motorsports right now. And the camera back just a wee bit. Just a ever so slightly. Void has fallen off behind Eat My Dust just a little bit and into the clutches of Nick Johnson. What has happened with Crew? Crew had a little bit of a spin. A bit of a moment. Let's take a quick look-see-loo at what happened to Crew. And just a bit too much curb and around she goes. I am on fire tonight with these puns and references. Probably not the best thing, if we're honest, because I know how many people can get quite annoyed at that kind of stuff. But I find it quite fun. Anyway, Bar South still just ahead of AJ now. AJ is one of those drivers that will continue to put up a fight in a very respectful way. And he does not like to give a spot away for nothing. And you can see Prince Adam has caught his way up, as AJ has been checked up by Bar South just in front. Captain CK confirming that he has been busy working and been busy with being a dad. So congratulations first and foremost. Not that I know when you had your kid, but I'm going to say congratulations anyway, because you have one. And that's seems a customary thing, weirdly, that you say congratulations for that. I mean, I guess you do try for a while. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Everyone's different. But we're still going with the race. I'm still waffling. The usual. As we are only 15 minutes into this one. Nick Johnson is right on the back bumper of Void. And still trying to find a way through. Let's jump on board. Ooh, actually, I got a better idea. Let's jump on the nose of Nick Johnson. Really hopping over that curb in that small chicane. It's not even really a chicane. Doesn't slow these cars down at all. They completely hop over it. Slowed right down for a tight left-hander into the, I guess it's the S's. Not a massive amount of S, trying to maximize speed out of this section into the final sector. What this is also doing is really giving you a sense of just how dark it is on track as well. As we'll change to the cockpit cam. Thank you very much, Nick Johnson, for providing us with these cameras, as well as Designer's Home Gallery. And have a look at just how dark it is inside the cockpit of Johnson's Peugeot. Or not, why did I say Peugeot? It's a Porsche. What is wrong with me? That's like the worst thing you can call a Porsche. I am sorry. Oh well. Picked it up straight away. But yeah, that just slipped out of my mouth. What a weird thing to say. As Nick Johnson... Oh, too much rallying. Nick Johnson is doing a great job trying to keep Void in his sights. He's losing out just a little bit recently, as we've been talking about him. Bit of commentator's curse coming into play potentially on that one. So we might have to let him be for a little bit and see if he can close that gap back up. As we pan the camera back a wee bit to Nicolator. Charging behind Sector now in the 10th position, looking for 9th. Not going to make it happen. Tried to scare a little bit, I believe, Sector there, but Sector was having none of it. Sam and Captain CK absolutely... beside themselves with that Porsche comment. I'll tell you what, funny story about a Peugeot. Just because they've put it into my head now. My first car was a Peugeot. And, look, I don't want to defame Peugeot in any way, shape or form. But their car did break on me completely. Had to scrap it within a year. What a joke. And what, speaking of, what was I just witnessing? What happened there? What did I just witness? I'd ask if anyone else saw that, but you all saw what I did. Biker Pilot pulled off to the inside, came back, and then I think was... Oh my! Having trouble with his brakes, I believe, might have been the cause of that one. And yeah, I'm not sure entirely what was going on there. Now showing that Nick Beaver is in the 19th position. He has come down pit road. That would explain that. Maybe a difference in strategy there. We are expecting these drivers to come down quite a few times tonight. Estimated 20 to 30 minutes before drivers should be coming down to refuel each and every time. So we should be looking at about 3 to 4 stops. As you can see behind Sector, who are currently focused on AJ, Bar South, Paper Bag, Prince Adam, all in a fairly tight line. Paper Bag setting his fastest lap of the race so far, and it looks like AJ had an issue as well. Turn 1 is proving to be a very big struggle for some of the drivers on track right now. I can only imagine it'll look a little bit worse as time goes on and the track temp increases when the sun comes out. Of course, that being said, in the adverse to that, much easier to see your brake marker than it is during the night. not a whole lot of hope for some of these drivers. I'm predicting that we're going to have a little bit more than what what Captain CK is predicting. Charles, I think we'll do a little bit better than that. I have all the confidence in the world. These drivers, they might have an issue here or there, but one thing a lot of these guys don't do is give up all that easily, and that is a incredibly commendable quality and one that's often overlooked, especially as a sim racer. You know, you go a couple laps down, everyone says, oh, just move out of the way, you're not even in it, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, you know, you're still trucking along and trying, and what was that? That's a scary moment if I've ever seen one. Was that a book going around? It was. So Book was on Struggle Street that time. Let's see if there was a multi-car incident or hopefully just a bit of a solo spin. And yes, just a bit too long. Now, that would have been a very scary sight to see a lot of those cars coming by the other direction. As we pan the camera back to the battle for 5th place. Eat My Dust has been passed by Void and looking to get it back now. We might actually pan the camera a little bit further up because have a look at this. I was not expecting this. But Bozak, not to say anything bad about him, but Bozak has been catching up to Joshua Spears very quickly. This could get interesting quickly, indeed. Spears is on the gas, trying hard to escape Bozak. Coming into turn 1 now. But Bozak is still there and not wanting to disappear anytime soon. A lot of cheers for Void right now. Void gang, rise up. You know we're going to shout out that comment. As Void currently sitting in the 5th position, doing a fantastic job. As I said earlier, don't see him a whole lot on track anymore in the Endurance Series. Or at least I do not recall seeing him the last few Endurance races. But it's great to have him out on track once again and proving that he has lost none of his talent as he has taken a small hiatus. Eat My Dust now has him mirrorful with Nick Johnson, and Sean Dickinson comes down pit lane. Joshua Spears follows through. Bozak's going to stay out and take over the race lead. An incredibly long and slow pit lane here at Indianapolis. Just to make my job all the more harder, to scramble up the field a lot more, and to make the spectators' job more annoying trying to find where everyone is as well. Because Indianapolis likes to do that. As Nick Johnson takes over the position from Eat My Dust, and he is currently sitting in 4th. After, well, as we get cycled through with pit stops. Most common manufacturer out on track right now is actually Corvette. I believe just pipping out the Porsches on track by only 1 or 2 machines. BMW following not too far behind with 4 machines, sorry. With Ferrari making up 2 spots and Nick Beaver, the lone Ford driver out there. As we see them come down pit road, there it is, but look at that. We're going to have Eat My Dust stay out one more lap. Potential fuel-saving strategies coming into play. If you can take one less stop, especially on a track like this, it is going to be huge at the end of the race. Because you are for so long on throttle at Indianapolis. And you save so much time with that really, really long, slow 55 mile an hour pit lane. We have a potential manufacturer's dispute. Look at this. Sam asking if BMW stripes are being used on the Porsche. Nickname. And we're going to take a look. Because it's certainly something. And it looks like he has. Ooh. Wonder what M Sports higher ups are going to think of this one. Probably not going to be all that happy. Yeah, I think it even says M Sport on the back under the wing. That is crazy. Bozak Simply Steve, not even an Eat My Dust, all down pit road. That should hand the lead straight back to Dickinson's hands. See when the light comes up, but I'm pretty sure I see when the sun comes up, excuse me, but I'm pretty sure I saw the sun, or one of the lights shining on that rear bumper. We'll take a look later on and see if we can see that for you. 30 minutes in, a quarter of the way completed for tonight's event. Hope you've enjoyed the action so far. I hope I haven't waffled on too much. I have a feeling I have. And we'll keep with the action for you as pit stop cycles are starting to end and everyone has come down at least the one time at this point. Alec Dog was the last driver to come down pit lane. And he's still serving his stop, but Dickinson has found his way to the lead. You know who has separated Bozak by quite a bit with those different fuel strategies. So that's an interesting development, as well as Bozak just ahead of Joshua Spears now. Joshua Spears looks like he's got a full head of steam though, and he wants to take that spot from Bozak. Doesn't quite get the run on exit that he was looking for though, I think. So Bozak should still have... Apologies. So Bozak should still have the third spot coming into first corner, and does so. A little bit further back. Tight fight for the ever-coveted 10th position this time, as Sector keeps Nicolator behind. And not too far behind them, you can see the cars starting to pack up just a little bit and form a little bit of a group. From Sector all the way back to Prince Adam in 15th, so 5 cars very, very close together. Very 6. Broadcaster math never been more on show than then. As AJ has made the move on paper bag. Prince Adam's trying to follow through. Oh, they're going to be close on the exit. And going to be squeezed out is Prince Adam. Paper bag is going to make sure that that stays in his grasp. The 14th spot still his. You know who has finally come down pit road. Now, I don't believe you know who. That's right, you know who had that incident earlier on, so he's come down pit road for his second stop, I believe, at this point. As well as it looks like Nick Johnson is also coming down pit road. I'll keep an eye on that one and see if I can tell you once again as crew also comes down. But I believe that will be their second stop so far. Captain CK letting us know that he... Oh, hello. As we watch the action, a little bit of a sniff, I guess, from Prince Adam on paper bag. A little bit of a flashy flash. I believe that is in apology, as paper bag did let AJ back by to grab that spot. Excuse me, we're looking at paper bag and Prince Adam, not AJ. It's harder to keep track when you're fully relying on what you can see in front of you, and most of what you can see in front of you is darkness. You know who has made his way out of pit road, and yes, that was his second stop, can confirm, as well as Nick Johnson and crew. Book also down pit road for his second stop as well. So you know who completely out of cycle with a lot of the guys that he is driving around. Whether that is going to benefit him or not, it's yet to be seen. A lot of people, you know, will say, oh, he's down a lap or he's down a bit from where he would usually be, but more often than not, I find with these endurance races, if you can keep your speed up, even if you find yourself in some kind of incident earlier on, you don't get involved in another one, keep your speed up, hit when you need to. Sometimes the pit cycles do work in your favor with regards to fuel management, so you really don't know where you know who could end up in this one. And he's still trying to make moves anyway, as he does make his way around Bar South and up into the 10th position. Now looking at Nicolator. A little bit of a block there from Nicolator on you-know-who. There's a bit of chat. There's a bit of spectator area commentary about Sector versus Nicolator. And that is what we're looking at right now. Sector in a very bright high-vis safety worker yellow Corvette. Now feel free to say that it's just my brain, but has anyone else ever found it very difficult to know which is yellow and which is white? That doesn't sound exactly right what I'm saying there, but sometimes I will see the color white and call it yellow and vice versa, and I don't know why. I guess it's just the way my brain works for some reason. But regardless of what we're talking about with the nonsense that I'm spitting out for you, you know who takes over the spot from Nicolator in the 9th position and is now going to work on passing Sector as well. Who really catching up to the back bumper, and really what's this doing is he is pulling Nicolator and Bar South along with him. So if he fights tooth and nail against Sector, don't be surprised if Nicolator and Bar South find themselves closing right up to the back bumper of Sector as well. Especially if they go too wide for a little bit of this potential overtake that you know who wants to make on Sector. And my ever hatred for the final sector of this track is showing, as I will once again plead the case that we used to go on the old layout all the way around turn 4 of the IndyCar Oval, which I guess would actually be turn 1 because they're heading in the opposite direction. But it used to be a straight shot. They complained cars were going too fast, so they changed it up and added that absolutely horrible final sector. It completely ruins the flow of the circuit, if you ask me. I understand that's up for debate, but I'm just telling you what's happened. My oh so unprofessional opinion. Sector doing a great job of keeping you-know-who behind and at bay. It must be said. As it looks like further towards the front, Bozak and Joshua Spears have both set their fastest laps of the race, with Void as well. Second, fourth, and sixth. Can we continue the trend? If Sector sets his fastest lap of the race, it'll be all evens throughout the top 8, which would be absolutely insane. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Oh, and I don't think it's going to happen. A little bit of a touch, a little bit of a rub. And round she goes. You know who? It was not his fault to begin with. But certainly got involved. Sector just a little loose all on his own. And you know who was just right there. And there we go. Nicolator finally able to get past. AJ takes full advantage, takes them both. And Barsouth also made his way past those two. So, wow, wow, wow. As we go back up towards the front, Simply Steve has Joshua Spears. And Upfront Motorsports is on the charge at the moment. Both of those lime green and black Porsches really making their way up through the standings and showing they have a whole lot of pace to give. Now, I've just realized, I can't believe it takes me almost 40 minutes, but I've just realized that I don't believe Tonlo has made it out to this race, which means that he may give up the second place overall standings, or driver standings, which he is currently in. And Simply Steve, who's currently in a battle for third with the driver right behind him right now, Joshua Spears, they may find themselves in second and third instead of just fighting for a podium. With the way that this shapes out, I believe they might. They definitely will, actually. I believe so. I'll do a double check on that one. As they continue to race their way around circuit. I love that when you're looking for some information, you can't find it. When you don't need it, you find it very easily. Always seems to be the case. They're about 20 points behind, so they could definitely change positions. It fully depends on where they finish up in this event. But they are going to have to finish quite high up in the standings. If they continue at the current where they currently are, they will find themselves in second and third spot in the driver standings by the end of this one. Eric's just letting us know, even though he probably let us know in the drivers chat before I managed to find it, because I am slow when it comes to certain things. And in all fairness, when it comes to my brain working sometimes, I'm not going to deny that one. But we try our best. And hopefully we can be entertaining while doing it. As Joshua Spears continues to be pretty close behind Simply Steve. I believe he has been closing that gap ever so slowly since we started watching these two. And just as a reminder as well, like we said earlier on in the show, all Simply Steve has to do is finish within 2 spots of Joshua Spears, and he will keep Spears behind him in the driver's standings. But that may be difficult to do and could definitely add some spice to the battle that we're watching on track as the sun is coming out. We could have noticed that a lot earlier, but we've noticed it now. The lights are still on these machines though, so it's still a little bit dark outside. Side by side, head from the tight right to the left-hander, but I believe it is going to be Spears up front, and it is. So Spears takes over the 3rd spot. I don't think Steve is going to fight for it tooth and nail here. Knows what he has to do. Must keep himself in a fairly steady position, and look at Spears take off. He wants nothing to do with Simply Steve at the moment. As it looks like he is all throttle right now. Let's pan the camera back to Prince Adam because he is right on the back bumper of Nicolator. Yet another battle. Once again, J2ICS.com always providing us with great racing. And they are always battles to be had. As we're down to 17 drivers out on track at this point. We started with 22 for the Crown Jewel event. 45 minutes completed. Prince Adam takes a look on the inside of Nicolator. Nicolator fights back under braking. It's not going to be enough, or is it? No, a little bit loose. Was Nicolator heading into that section of track? And Prince Adam is going to be very happy to see that happen. Not all that far behind these two. You can see coming up just a little ways down the track is Dickinson. Putting on an absolute clinic once again. And an ever humble driver in victory. Whenever he has one in the past, not necessarily that he's going to win again. Does have a history, Dickinson, of maybe getting a little bit too complacent, maybe pushing the car a little bit too much, whatever it is. Does have a history of leading these races almost from start to finish, and then with the final hit, just around the final pit stop, has a little bit of a moment where he spins himself around and finds himself right back in the thick of it. So we'll hope that that does not happen to him this time around, but we will have to keep an eye on that. Simply Steve has been catching back up to Joshua Spears. Nicolator also catching back up to Prince Adam. Both of those battles continuing, neither one wanting to give too much space to the driver ahead. Dickinson sets the fastest lap of the race, a 1:20.5. That is blisteringly fast, ladies and gentlemen. That is a full half second faster than the qualifying time that these drivers were putting down. 1:20.87. Simply Steve and Nodovan and Void just behind were all 1:20.78s and 9s. Getting into the 1:20 mark is, well, that is a massive achievement in and of itself. I've had some pretty top quality racing at this point so far. And the gap has opened up a little bit between Prince Adam and Nicolator, but Simply Steve is still trying hard to charge to the back bumper of Spears. He's really throwing everything but the kitchen sink at him. And it does not look like he's able to get close enough to make a move, but just potentially staying in the draft. Now, as we've said before, Simply Steve, obviously being a racer, you want to get all you can every single time. But Simply Steve knows in the back of his head, he's got to know he only needs to finish 2 spots behind Joshua Spears to really confirm that he is in contention. I believe if Joshua Spears finishes in the first place position here tonight, Simply Steve has to finish second, otherwise he will not have enough points to keep himself above Joshua Spears before the end of this race, or the end of this championship. There are definitely a few talking points out on track. We have team battles all over the place. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Upfront Motorsports battling with Speed Squad for 13 points the difference. You've got SimCity Racing and Love Seat within 10 points of each other for the 3rd spot. In 5th, 10 points separate Night Racing, BDS Racing, and Rookie Mistake. In 8th, only 10 points separating Neon Nuisance and N Squared. And in 10th, only 10 points separating Bong Life Motorsport, Scuderia DNF, and Bob Nova Racing. I mean, literally could not get a closer team standing table than that. It is absolutely insane what we find ourselves watching. As the sun is definitely on its way up, we can still see the lights, but they will be turning those off inside the cars soonish. And there goes Crew with a bit of a spin in front of Simply Steve. Bit of a solo incident there, and once again, just taking a look at this one. Oh, just locking up the brakes. And there comes the leaders. Or a couple of the leaders. Thankfully, no one else involved in that one. Yeah, that was Joshua Spears and Simply Steve coming through in 3rd and 4th, right behind. Another car guy letting us know that Book needs a top 15. to finish P10 in the driver's standings. Let's take a little bit of a look at Book. And he has been doing pretty well. Had a few incidents early on, but as of recently, he's been just clicking off lap times and making his way around the track. He is currently in 15th, where he needs to be. And it looks like he's going to be doing a great job staying there. Let's not forget P10 in the driver's standings. That ain't nothing to sneeze at. That's pretty solid. Especially considering there's quite a few drivers who have made their way out into the standings. In total, I believe we have had about 35. No, that's about 40 entries, I think. Maybe even more. In regards to all the entries for this series. So, a P10 is absolutely enormous. Let's go back up front because Joshua Spears has Simply Steve still just behind. These two have not been able to separate from each other. They are loving each other's company. And there's the difference right there. Joshua Spears comes down. Pit road, Simply Steve stays out. He's got a longer fuel strategy, stayed out at least one lap longer last time by. And maybe that will pay dividends towards the end of this race. It certainly meant that he was out in front of Spears last time the pit cycles made their way through, so we'll see what happens this time. If they can make it close to the hour mark, that means that he may have to pit one less time. And I think that might be Simply Steve's strategy in the #1 Corvette. Now, interestingly enough, we're seeing a lot of the Porsches have to come down earlier on. So I'm wondering if the Corvettes have used a little bit less fuel than the Porsches do. The unique characteristic, of course, of the Porsches is always the engine being smack bang in the middle of the rear axle, I believe, as opposed to pretty much every other car out on track, which is very, very interesting, especially when fuel level gets low and because the front end has the fuel tank. So if the fuel tank gets low, you lose a lot of weight at the front end, which means it lifts up. All your weight shifts from being around the midpoint of the car to the back, where the engine is, and can lead to some pretty interesting moments where you get a little bit sideways, and because all the weight's at the back, she has a little bit of a spin and a kick moment. So definitely a characteristic unique to the Porsche. Not something I have ever been on board with, but a lot of people seem to drive them, and a lot of people like them. So if the formula ain't broke, don't fix it, as they say. They are a very successful manufacturer when it comes to racing. Obviously, they're doing something right. As I am totally trying to not cover up for the fact that I called them Peugeot earlier. Not at all. I don't know what you're talking about. Interestingly enough, Donovan catching up to Simply Steve. And again, I have to wonder if Simply Steve is deliberately saving fuel to make it as far as possible before this next pit stop. We've just hit 57. By the time he comes around, we're about 58 minutes in or so. that'll be, oh sorry, about 58.5. So that'll be close to the hour mark, which is where he'll be roughly aiming for. I'm sure he's in fuel saving mode a little bit as Nodovan is closing the gap incredibly quickly. Boyd comes down pit road. And Dickinson will move his way back up into the top 5 through pit cycles. As it looks like we may be joined by our fellow commentator and good friend, Mr. East of the James. Of course, that's an interesting way to introduce you, but hello, James. Welcome.
I've been called worse. Thank you for having me, Gareth. Apologies to the fans. Just flew in from Michigan to get here at Indy to watch the J2ICS Crown Jewel. So excited to see kind of where we're at and what's been going on with these drivers.
Yeah, it's been a pretty phenomenal race up to this point, just under an hour in. And we're currently making our way through pit cycles, so a little bit of a mix-up at the moment, but it's good to have you here. And yeah, Dickinson has been on fire so far, really making his way through the field very, very quickly. Already made his pit stop, and I believe Simply Steve is on a strong fuel-saving strategy to try and make his way up into the hour mark so that he can avoid making that one extra pit stop.
Now, I see we have 22 drivers. I see a few drivers in pit road. It looks like the bottom 4 drivers, Johnson Beaver, Albanese, Biker Pilot, Spring Flower, which is a spectacular name, by the way. Have we seen any drivers have to retire early from this main event? I noticed that Urko's not on the board for this one.
Yeah, no, Urko unfortunately missed out. He's currently in the spectator area. So he's been talking to us quite a bit. Simply Steve makes his way down pit road, and Eat My Dust, his teammate, will follow him through there. So Dickinson will once again take over the race lead. But yeah, what we've been seeing is quite a few drivers have had a few incidents earlier on, and unfortunately have had to retire early. But you know, we've still got a solid group, about 17, that are continuing to make their way around. And I will say, Joshua Spears has been absolutely flying, trying to make all he can, as he is currently in a fight with Simply Steve to decide who gets second in the Drivers' Championship.
Yeah, that's going to be a tight battle to the end. And Gareth, I want to talk about, you and I have both ran the Indy Road Course before. Historically not a very popular track whenever you and I have ran it the past couple of years. I'm pleasantly surprised so many drivers have come out tonight and given it the old good college try.
Yeah, look, it's as you know, not my favorite track, and I don't think it's your favorite either, James.
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah, but it's nice to see. I think it just shows, really more than anything, I think it just shows how much well, you know what? More than anything, let's just forget I said anything because I waffle as I usually do. It's Void's fault. That's what we can say. He sponsored this one, so he knew what he was doing. I wonder if he just wanted to shake things up, and that's why he sponsored this event. But regardless, it looks like Joshua Spears is holding off Nodovan, and now Simply Steve, having just come out of the pits, is going to throw his hat in the ring there.
Yeah, very heated battle for third. Donovan's been right there behind Spears for about the last lap and a half, but I'm very happy to see Simply Steve right back in the hunt, that number 1 machine closing the gap. Now, I'm curious as well, with these drivers knowing there's a little bit less than an hour to go in this Crown Jewel, are we going to see Simply Steve and Nodovan pressure the 84 of Spears, or are they going to kind of hang back here, watching along and maybe even trying to hit some fuel-saving numbers as they let that big, mean green machine of Spears kind of push the air out front, and they're just kind of tucked in behind and a little bit of cruise control?
Yeah, that's definitely something that we have been we've been discussing a little bit so far in this event, because it's definitely been one of those things. So Simply Steve is definitely on a fuel strafing strategy. We can pretty much confirm that, as he is trying desperately to make it so that he only needs one more stop before the end of this race. Unfortunately, Joshua Spears will not be able to, I don't think, even if he saves a lot of fuel from now, I don't think he'll be able to make it to the end on just one more stop. I think he'll have to take two. And Nodovan is a bit of an enigma because he can choose whichever one he decides to do, I think, at this stage of the race. So it's something that we're going to keep an eye on for sure. But it also takes into account, like, how are these drivers going to race each other? Because if I was Simply Steve, for example, you just follow in as close as you can behind Nodovan to save that fuel under draft.
Yeah, exactly. Nodovan is kind of in the weird spot here. He's helping Simply Steve save fuel, but Joshua Spears, the number 84 machine, from what I gather with what you're telling me, has to be on the throttle here. He can't afford to lift, knowing that he's going to have to box one more time. He's going to be giving it everything he has to try and get the pace down and not allow those guys behind him to gain much ground when he's down pit road now. Briefly as well, it looked like Spears was catching up to Bozak a little bit in that 906 as Bozak running second, but it seemed like Spears has backed off, and we thought Simply Steve was going to take it easy. No, excuse me, that's Nodovan. Nodovan's going for it in the 128.
Yeah, definitely something I didn't expect to see, but Nodovan has shown pace quite a few times here in this race so far, so maybe he just decided, you know what, let's just go for it and see what we can do. It's going to be interesting how that one plays out, but yeah, Joshua Spears still is going to be having to push the pedal as hard as possible, like you said earlier. So they're going to be locked in a very tight fight, and that means all the better for Simply Steve, as if they go side by side, he's going to be able to stay right behind them, and even more air will be disturbed, and he will be able to save a buttload more fuel. Another car guy is asking me if I have given more thought towards the ocean being a soup. And now that I've got you here, James, let's bring you in on this action. What do you think about the ocean technically being considered soup?
I'm still confused on what quantity of fuel is he going to be saving? It was boatload, right? A boatload of fuel?
Yeah, boatload of fuel. You haven't heard that expression?
Yeah, okay. Okay, never mind. So, yeah, back brief me on the ocean. I mean, technically, the ocean is a soup.
So, what's your hypothesis on that? I'm just curious now more than anything else.
If you have more than one ingredient in a large container, it's a soup.
Interesting. Okay. So, does that mean a glass of water is technically soup?
Well, it depends if it has ice cubes or not, Gareth.
But you could still have ice cubes in a soup, couldn't you?
Ice cubes are just frozen water croutons. But regardless, Nodovan still sitting in third. As I see an off track, I think it was Dickinson.
It was actually Sean Dickinson. I keep on doing that. So, Sean has come back on track. And we said this just a little bit earlier, that he has a little bit of a reputation for making some small errors as the race keeps going. I think he just gets in a bit of a lull out in front by himself and makes just a bit of a mistake, and that's exactly what it was. So thankfully not spinning around or hurting himself too much, but definitely making his tires quite a bit less grippy than they were before.
Yeah, off in the kitty litter, and it looks like he's going to bleed off about 6 or 7 seconds there from the race lead. I mean, as you and I both know, we've called a lot of endurance races. We've ran a lot of endurance races. Consistency is the killer of dreams here. If you make any little mistake like that, I mean, that was just such a tiny slip up from Dickinson. That is a 6-7 second hole he's going to have to try and dig himself out of later in the race. And I mean, you've got guys such as Bozak, Nodovan, Joshua Spears running very, very well here. And I mean, we're seeing the broadcast software light up with more incidents across the field, but These are the guys a little bit further back, late into the race. We're past the halfway mark. These should be the guys I expect to make something happen. If they can just keep hitting their marks and staying on task here for the next 53-odd so minutes, I think that's what's going to make or break a lot of these drivers, just the attrition of it.
Yeah, absolutely. The attrition game is always such a huge one. And, you know, we've seen that time and time again where the drivers just get a little bit, I guess, tired. I mean, think about it. You're concentrating. These drivers started out at night time. They've gone through all the night, which means you're concentrating harder, trying to figure out where your braking points are, really focus in. And now that the light's coming up, you feel a little bit of a weight lifts, but that can sometimes really hinder your performance as you just make mistakes because you're just a little more relaxed. And yeah, that can sometimes happen to some of these drivers. And as I said, you know, the other thing we've got to talk about with Dickinson as well up front, he also is on the same strategy as Joshua Spears, where he's going to have to pit an extra time. So with losing that 7 or so seconds, will that be too much for him to make up behind Simply Steve and potentially Nodovan now, as well as maybe Bozak?
I mean, we've seen it in J2ICS in the past as well, where it's a 2-hour long format single driver endurance race, but it still comes down to the last 5 laps. All these little either cumulative mistakes or small little wins the drivers get in their favor. We've seen this thing come down to, you know, 4 or 5 laps on who can hold the closest. But Gareth, if we go back, we briefly were 3 wide, and it's going to end poorly as Sector gets the worst end of it. Sector was running, I think, 11th. I think that was Prince Adam and Nicolator also involved in that one.
Yeah, we're showing Paper Bag involved in that one, actually. So we'll take a
let's see.
look. And it looks like a bit of a move that went wrong. Ooh.
Oh, where is he going?
Sector has just disappeared a little bit.
So,
okay.
Walk me through that. Was that Nicolator that hit Paper Bag, and then Sector just had enough and said, I'm going to take this way?
Let's have a look one more time. So they're both
their Sector
running...
just takes a huge spin from nowhere. That was never going to happen.
Yeah, so Sector had a spin all on his own, and Paper Bag and Book got together. We're going to have to go back one more time real quick as this one unfolded, but yeah, it just looks like...
So a move up the inside, a little bit of car-to-car. This looked like just 2 drivers trying to occupy the same position, and I don't know what was happening with Sector there, but I know enough about this course to know that is not the racing line.
No, it is not, and from what I could see, it looked like Paper Bag expected to, was trying to allow for extra space, and car on the inside, excuse me, that was Nicolator, just didn't quite turn in as quickly as was expected by Paper Bag, so the 2 just got involved in their own separate incident. And in all fairness to Sector, if he was going to miss, he did the right thing and avoided collecting those 2 drivers in front.
Yeah, that could have been way worse. If he purposely forced a 3 wide, missing the brake mark there, yeah, that would have absolutely obliterated Paper Bag and Book in that one. So thankfully that was not the case. And while we have the camera pointed at Prince Adam, what's the lap traffic going to be like for these drivers? It looks like Dickinson starting to catch him here.
A little bit of a spin for Prince Adam. That has got to hurt the ego of Prince Adam just there, right behind Bar South, potentially looking for a top 10, and going to have a few seconds extra to work, try and gain back that position. But we'll go back up front because it looks like Joshua Spears and Simply Steve are pretty close together once again.
Yeah, and then Void had a big moment at number 25 Ferrari. I saw him out the window of our booth here.
The fan favorite.
Pirouetting. Yeah, he was pirouetting around the racetrack.
Oh, that's not what you want to see.
Unfortunately, right in the racing line. You and I, that's a white knuckle moment, hoping that the leader's not going to be charging by at that exact moment. Thankfully, that was not the case for Void, but
We only caught the tail end of that one, so we'll see what he did.
another crash at the start-finish line.
But that was Void, and yeah, you're right, AJ has had a moment as well. Oh, just loses the rear end. Yeah, as the track was heating up, that's what we've been saying. As the track turns from night to day, it's gonna get loose on these drivers. And they are definitely dealing with some heated track temps at the moment. It doesn't look like it's too hot out on track yet, but certainly hotter than what these drivers were dealing with earlier on. And I'm not sure about you, James, but from my experience, it almost feels like let's take a look. There's a brief pause from the commentary because it looks like there's a bit of a send there.
Oh.
AJ is trying to get around Prince Adam. It's about as close as you can get. And just still struggling with the rear end of that machine is AJ. So Prince Adam able to get a little bit of a gap right there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, who is that? And that's Nodovan sitting third overall, kind of injecting himself into the party there. We're watching the battle for 10th on screen, but Nodovan, the 128, just wants to get through this thing unscathed. And it looks like he's going to make it happen here. Maybe going to see a send into turn 1. That's going to be against Prince Adam and the 777 BMW, but look at that. AJ's going to try and follow the third place driver through, and we're going to go side by side. These guys are elbows out in the battle for 9th. It's AJ, the 45 BMW versus Prince Adam, the 777 BMW. This is a busy racetrack, Gareth.
Yeah, that is not what Joshua Spears wants to see. Jeez, that was right across the nose. That was a bit sketchy for what Joshua Spears wants to see there. Especially with Simply Steve so close behind. And they're still fighting it out just in front. These two drivers have not been able to separate from each other for almost an entire lap at this point.
What do you think Spears is going to do here?
Oh, speaking of
Spears is going to lose a spot to Simply Steve.
All right, we need to take
Spears
a quick look at that.
Yeah, Spears with an off track. I didn't catch it on mine.
Oh, just ran wide behind those two fighting machines, and through goes Simply Steve.
Now, I was going to ask about Spears here, but now I'm going to ask about Simply Steve, as it looks like, well, Steve's going to come down pit road. I was going to ask, what's the move here by some of the lead lap drivers? Are they going to take it easy behind these lap cars that are battling? Are they going to try and quickly get through? Because, man, Spears was putting himself...
AJ with a swing
there goes
and a
AJ.
miss. Yep.
I was going to ask, as a lead lap driver, when do you try and pick your moments? Because you're kind of sitting there hanging out in the vortex of danger, and that is not where I would want to be trying to navigate traffic.
Oh, absolutely not, James. The thing is that, honestly, as a racing driver, I would think that you probably want to hang back and only make the move once those two drivers have sorted out which one is going to take the lead for that specific time. It might not be a very fast way to get it done, but it's definitely the safest way to get it done, as it looks like Paper Bag is actually very close to a spot with Book just ahead, as Dickinson once again sets the fastest lap of the race with a 1:20.29.
Yeah, he's absolutely ripping in that 64 machine. Dickinson put on a great job, but we're focused in on Paper Bag. Bag is closing the gap up to Book, about 1.2 seconds off the back of the 056 machine. We've got AJ coming back down pit road, and we've got some more stops going on. A little bit less than 44 minutes left to go. And looks like Simply Steve and Spears. Man, it's an endurance race, and these guys are going at it like it's one of our Wednesday sprints.
Yeah, it definitely looks like it. These drivers are absolutely nose to tail, and they've just kept it that way basically this entire fuel run. But once again, we've got to bring it up. Joshua Spears definitely wants to stay clean rather than fight tooth and nail. Sorry, simply Steve wants to stay clean rather than fight tooth and nail with Spears. Because he is probably thinking Spears almost certainly has to stop another time, as opposed to simply Steve himself, who just has to make his way around track and keep saving the fuel. I think that's definitely his strategy at the moment, as it looks like Sector is closing up to AJ, or was doing pretty quickly for a moment there. I think it might have evened out just a little bit now.
Yeah, AJ still holding on to about a 1.9 second margin over Sector. That's going to be what could be the battle for 12 shaping up. Sector looks like he's gaining a 10th here, 10th there, but then it yo-yos right back in AJ's favor. So I'm going to be interested to see how that one plays out. We're focusing in on Joshua Spears, still running fourth. Now, this is an interesting spot for Steve to be in as well. If the driver in front of you is trying to fuel save, sometimes you can kind of force them off the strategy. If you're right there on the back bumper with the headlights, the driver in front will have a natural tendency to pick up the pace a little bit when you're effectively getting race tailgated out on circuit, causing you to burn up a little bit more fuel. I see that happen more on the oval side of races, where fuel strategy can come into effect on super speedway, but definitely translates to road. So wonder if Steve's going to put the pressure on Spears and maybe kind of prevent that 84 machine from saving as much as he wants. I'm not quite sure how that one's going to play out, Gareth.
It's definitely a chess game, a chess match for sure, with these two drivers really biting for the top two. Biting for second and third place in the standings. Pretty sure at this point that Dickinson has wrapped up the Drivers' Championship at this point in the season. So great job to him. Still has to get it done though tonight, and we'll see if he has another moment like he did earlier on. Of course, nothing is set in stone, and nothing ever is when you take motorsport into account. So many variables being played with out here on track. I'd also like to give a shout out to some of the drivers really that have found themselves out even just on track in general. I mean, Bozak is doing much better than I don't think I've seen Bozak out on track for a little while now, and he's come back and he's proved that he hasn't lost his touch. Donovan has been doing great. Joshua Spears, simply Steve has been fuel saving like a pro. Dickinson is out in front as always, but always a fantastic thing to see. You know, Void, shout out to him, who hasn't been around for a little while and came out and has just been clicking off lap times, doing a great job. Bath South, Nicolator find himself in the top 10. I mean, I could just shout out everyone at this point. I mean, this race has been a true example of the culmination of a championship and of a series. You know, we've had drivers who are doing so much better in this race than they were at the start of the season. We've got just a whole bunch of different strategies playing out right now. Still in the midst of everything, still more than half an hour to go. I mean, James, I just think it's amazing, and I'm just lost for words because, yep, that's my spiel.
Every time I see the J2ICS drivers, either in their Wednesday series, the Sprinter Endurance, or elsewhere across the iRacing service, two things impress me most about this group is the on and off track camaraderie. I know a bunch of the guys were just hanging out this past weekend at the real life Daytona 24, hanging out and having some interleague bonding. And then the other part that impresses me outside the family aspect is how quick these guys are in anything they hop into on the iRacing service. I mean, it can be GTEs, LMP3s, LMP1s. These guys are always very, very quick. As I say that, Steve almost makes me eat my words as he...
that was
Joshua Spears.
Now,
with a very sketchy pit entrance.
Yeah, Dickinson is in pit as well, but sorry to break your train of what was a very nice and touching
Oh, it's gone
way to
now.
go through things, James. But Joshua Spears coming down pit entry like that, he did cross the white line, and I'm just curious, he might have a stop and go or drive through penalty. So that's absolutely going to hurt, and we hope not, but the stewards are definitely going to be looking at that one with a bit more focus than they otherwise would have.
Yeah, now that's going to put as well the top 4 drivers all down pit road on lap 43. Dickinson out on track 59. And Gareth, you've been here a lot longer in the show than I've been. Is Dickinson going to be able to make it till the end here on a tank, or are we going to see that 64 machine down pit road one final time?
We're going to have to see that 64 down pit road one final time, because we've only got, at a stretch, about 32 minutes or so of fuel that these cars can really go to. Maybe 35 if you're the most amazing fuel saver of all time. But I don't see how the fuel is going to last any longer than that. So at this point, Dickinson is just going to be on the gas. Can't take your time from now. You fill it up and you just go. But like you said,
Oh,
they
no!
might have to come down one more time. And you know who, after struggling so hard in the early goings of this race, trying desperately to eke out some more points for the team to stay up on top of the team standings, you know who has an incident once again.
Yeah, side by side with Void. I couldn't quite see if one driver came down. It almost looks like who pushes wide there, I think.
I think he just pushed a little bit too wide up into Void. Void had nowhere to go. There was a wall on one side and a car on the other. So, yeah, it's just a slight misjudgment on the part of you-know-who, but I tell you what, he got back onto the track quick smart, and he is absolutely flying right now to make up the time that he has just lost, and he is trying desperately, as I said earlier, to catch up with Joshua Spears, as he's still going to have to pit one more time as well, and he wants to get all the team points possible, because there are only 13 points separating Upfront Motorsports and Speed Squad. So it's very, very, very close, even up to the final race of the season.
And to give who his credit there after that incident, didn't lose much time there to Void. It has already closed the gap back to 1.6 seconds while still holding about 17.5 seconds up over Joshua Spears. Now, we were talking about fuel saving before that massive moment between Void and you-know-who. I've called races with Dickinson in them in the past, and I remember vividly that being one driver that absolutely hates fuel saving. So even though joining this late, I'm not super surprised to see Dickinson going for a strategy that leaves him on the throttle for the whole race. I mean, that's kind of his MO, and we've got Prince Adam and Sector down pit road, but again, not surprised to see some drivers throwing fuel saving out the window and saying, hey, we're just going to let the cards fall where they may be.
Yeah, I'm very much a strong proponent of that one as well. I don't think that's the right word, but it's definitely something I like to do as well. It's just, I'm not a big fan of fuel saving. It can win you scenarios where it's really desperate, but I personally have always been a fan of just absolutely throttling it if it comes down to whether a fuel save is going to make the difference or not. But yeah, all I can say is that it seems to be working for Simply Steve and has done for quite a few times. That is completely the wrong camera, as we're going to change that one up very quickly. But that was Void who was coming down pit road. We saw that Spears and you-know-who were, especially you-know-who, was closing that gap, and we know why. It's because Void was coming down pit lane.
Yeah, Void opting to come down pit road with about 33 minutes left in this main event, the season finale. And it looks like we still have a battle going on for 12th. Paper Bag and Prince Adam linked up once more. Now, Adam in that 777 machine having good ground gained. As I hear a little bit of tires squealing and protesting. I think that was from Paper Bag's Porsche, but doing what he can. And Adam closing the gap and showing some aggressiveness we've seen or haven't seen in a while. And there we go, a big send from Adam up the inside line, getting the spot from Paper Bag. And I think Bag's looking at that one going, you know what? I do not want to wad up a perfectly good race car, and I'm going to follow Adam for a little bit here.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that is really taken for granted as a racing driver. You know, being aggressive, but not being so aggressive that you ruin your own day and someone else's. It's always a hard balance that you have to try and adjust for. But Prince Adam, I've noticed as the season has gone on, has been making some more aggressive plays, but still keeping himself clean and out of the way of a lot of people. And if he keeps that up, that'll be a huge thing. As you said, you know, Paper Bag saw him coming and didn't want a bar of it, let him go. And more often than not, if you're really aggressive, but you're safe in doing so, other drivers will see that and they don't want a bar of it. And you can take the spot away relatively easily, just as Prince Adam did.
Yeah, and that's part of endurance racing too, I feel. If you see somebody rapidly closing the gap, especially in cars, these guys have rear view mirrors, side mirrors. They know when somebody's closing the gap so quickly. Sometimes it's better for your own races, the slightly slower driver, or maybe a driver on different strategy, like you said, to kind of get the virtual wave out the window, say, hey, I see you, come on by. And then if it's a truly faster driver, such as the case is you're getting lapped by the leaders, it's a good opportunity for you as well to kind of tuck in behind those guys, see what lines they're taking, see what brake markers they're at, and maybe learn a thing or two every time you have a faster driver make their way by.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. But, wow, I said that surprisingly quickly for my own brain. As it looks like Nodovan is taking over the race lead right now, and we're going to see if he has saved enough. We know that Simply Steve is going to be saving enough. He saved an extra lap over Nodovan and Bozak, so we'll have to see when they come through, but it looks like... yeah, it still looks like we're going to be waiting, and I think they might be able to make it all the way, even if they pit now. They're going to have just around about half an hour to go. And in comes Nodovan right on the dot. Simply Steve is coming in as well, I believe. Yes, he is.
Yep.
And we will have to see what happens with Eat My Dust, who was following Simply Steve's direction, the two teammates, who are definitely trying to get themselves into the team winner's circle. And it looks like he's going to be following along as well. So past comes Dickinson, who will take over the race lead. But remember, we'll have to stop one more time. So well, how is this one going to play out is anyone's guess.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see Dickinson starting to pass drivers who are on pit road. That's not even Simply Steve, Eat My Dust, all in their boxes together. How far ahead is Dickinson going to be after this pit cycle? It looks like so far Nodovan has spent 50 seconds on pit road, so Dickinson's going to have to build up a big gap here. But look at Void back there in 8th, clicks off the fastest lap of the race, a 120.22. That Ferrari finding some speed late into the run. Bozak taking over the second place spot, as it looks like Nodovan is out of his pit stall in 3rd, a minute and 7 seconds on pit road. Dickinson showing only 24, let's call it 25 seconds up over Nodovan. I don't know how this one's going to pan out, Gareth.
Yeah, neither do I, because it's very, very close. And speaking of close, we're just panning the camera back to Simply Steve and Joshua Spears, because Spears made it out, or made it past pit road just as Simply Steve was coming on through the exit, and managed to take the spot back, but again will have to make another pit stop, whereas Simply Steve should be able to make it all the way to the end on fuel. But these two drivers have been around each other for pretty much the majority of the race, And we see that actually quite a few weeks we've seen that kind of thing. And what was that shooting to the moon? Was Joshua Spears for a second.
Yeah, these guys are showing a bit of aggressiveness, and we've saw it just 20 minutes ago where little mistakes can cost you 7 or 8 seconds. And now it's going to be simply Steve's turn. Is he going to try and pressure Spears into a mistake? Garlic coming down pit road for what should be the final time. But let's see, and another off track. Looks like it's going to be Book for this one. But man, Simply Steve in a good spot here, really keeping the pressure up on Spears, trying to force that 84 machine into a mistake, and staying right there, just a hair under a half second back from him. I don't know, is Steve going to make a move here, or is he going to follow along? Since Steve knows he's got a little bit more fuel than Spears.
Yeah, I think he's going to follow along. I mean, I wouldn't push the issue if I was Simply Steve. Just stay behind. There's no reason to push the issue. If you're going to... I mean, he's got to know that he's saved as much fuel as possible. And with him and Spears being on different fuel-saving strategies, I think he'd know that Spears has to come in one more time. The question,
yeah, and we've got
Urko
in the spectator area saying he thinks Spears should pit as soon as he can, and that way he won't have a draft provided to Steve on this run.
Yeah, it's a tough call though, because if you come in now, then you're coming all the way down pit road for only a very, very short splash and dash, and I'm not sure if it's really worth it. But at the end of the day, it's probably the same amount of time. I don't know. I think that's a pretty tough call, but you could be right. I don't know if the draft is that huge an effect. I mean, it will save some fuel, though. I mean, I'm basically having an argument in my own head right now, James.
Well, you're actually talking out loud, Gareth.
Damn. Who would have thought?
Yep. So, and now we were talking about if Steve's going to put the pressure on Spears or not. But the other thing is, we're both in agreement here. The safe move is probably not. Let's follow along, and knowing the other driver still has the box one more time. But I think what fans and broadcasters forget sometimes is racers are here to race. So, Simply Steve with that rabbit to chase with Joshua Spears might just say, hey, you know what? Let's put on a show here and make something happen. As Steve cutting the grass a little bit there, has to be careful not to be pushing too hard. But I think that's indicative that Steve is on the gas here, and might make something happen against Spears if the opportunity presents itself.
Well, actually, you've just made me think of a really good point, James, and that is, if Steve continues to pressure Spears, then maybe he will force Spears to use even more fuel and maybe make a mistake guaranteeing Steve the position. So, like we said earlier, you know, a bit of a cat and mouse game, I think, could definitely be attributing itself to this one.
Yeah, and these guys running 4th and 5th, running about the same pace as Nodovan in 3rd. They're about 3.6, 3.7 seconds back from a podium, and that could be another reason we may see Steve light it up a little bit earlier. If he thinks he might have the pace to pull up and somehow catch Nodovan by the tail end of this thing, that could be another reason for that number 1 machine to charge forward and try and quickly dispatch Spears' 84 machine. But I don't think that's going to be the case right now. We got a little bit over 20 minutes left to go, and from everything I'm seeing right now, it doesn't look like Steve is going to press the issue too much, and I think he actually slowed down quite a bit from the lap prior. So I wonder if that slight excursion dip in the wheels in the grass was maybe enough to make Steve a little bit hesitant here in the back part of the race, and wanting to guarantee a good strong finish versus pushing too hard for a podium.
Yeah, I'm wondering as well if he just looked at his fuel calculator and just thought, maybe I should back it down just a tad to save that little bit extra just in case. Because remember, these endurance races, they might say 2 hours, but they can just easily finish in the 2 hours and I think what's the fastest time? About a 120. So if we
Yeah,
could,
low 120s.
yeah, we could definitely go for a 2 minutes 2 rather than just, I mean, sorry, a 2 hour 2 minutes race. Wow, a 2 hour and 2 minutes race, which it doesn't sound like much, but an extra lap of fuel can sometimes be the difference between whether you've saved enough and haven't. So I think that might be weighing on his mind a little bit as well.
No, I think you're spot on. I mean, and then especially this late in the race is where the attrition starts to become a factor, as unfortunately Prince Adam might be falling victim to that with an off track in the 777. Looks like the car's tracking straight from what I see, but at this point in the race, this is where mistakes can really compound. We're going to try and get a replay queued up of Adam's BMW having that issue. And then we've got more racing going on, AJ and Paper Bag. So here's Prince Adam and that 777.
Ooh.
What was that, Gareth?
I would...
Is that a mid-race phone call?
That could be a mid-race phone call. Could also be a slight issue. It was interesting talking to a mate of mine a couple days ago. Had an issue with his pedals where the point where the pedals were connected to the computer was a bit finicky, and just a small movement, even just a bump in the setup, would cause the jack to just slip slightly out of the thing, and he'd just lose connection with his pedals. So, I mean, it could be any number of things. Could be a cat. You know how you would not be surprised,
Yeah.
or maybe you would be, at how many times I have had a driver come up to me and say their cat has jumped on their lap while they're trying to sim race. Cats do not have a perception of personal space or what needs to be going on at what time. They just do their own thing, and you're in their way, basically.
Yeah, fair.
From what I understand. We also had
Yeah, because it looked like a lockup. It looked like a lockup, like a braking thing. So that's what was so odd. Normally when we see hardware failures, it's either full throttle or just straight off the track. So yeah, I'm a little perplexed on that one.
Thankfully, it didn't seem like it cost him too much in terms of time or anything like that. He's still got about a 7-second lead on Sector behind, so I believe that he should be pretty good still, as we did have Nicoletta have involved in an incident a laps ago. We're just going to queue that one up very quickly, and that's going to be AJ behind on this replay. Let's see if it was a single incident. Yeah, just a bit of a lockup, nothing too bad. And AJ
Another odd
went
one.
through unscathed, but yeah, I think that one was a bit more of just a missed braking marker, whereas the other one was completely perplexing. And Spears, there it is, comes down, and he's going to take a splash and dash to make it to the end.
So right now it's Dickinson, your race leader, Bozak second, Nodovan sitting in third, but we're all fairly confident Dickinson's not going to make it on fuel here. So I'm not sure how it's going to pan out. Dickinson showing 21.4 seconds up over Bozak and 24 seconds ahead of Nodovan. Nodovan's doing a good job keeping Bozak within striking distance late in the race as well. There could be something there by the time it's all said and done, and Nodovan does have 2 laps more fuel under the hood of that 128. Now, Bozak Nodovan in the same car should have close to the same fuel mileage, depending on the setup in these things. And it looks like Joshua Spears in and out of his pit stall, 8.6 seconds. How much time is he going to spend on pit road? It's 58 seconds flat for Spears, still staying on the lead lap. But I'm surprised here how long some of these drivers spend on pit lane. The IndyCar, remind me, Gareth, you've raced here before. Is it a painfully slow pit road speed here, correct?
Yeah, I was saying at the top of the show earlier on, but I know it was before you got here, James. And I'll remind everyone just once again, but yeah, it is a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. So it's not the slowest, but it's definitely on the slow end. And I can tell you that it feels like an absolute eternity. Like you said, you're spending almost a full minute on pit road, including the pit stop, of course, but it just takes so long, and it's a completely straight pit road as well. So it just feels like it's never ending, and I'm just worried on Dickinson's behalf. I'm not sure he's going to be able to hold on to this top spot once he comes down pit road, but he's definitely going to run that thing dry until he has to come in again and fuel back up.
Yeah, I mean, Spears with a splash and dash, 58 seconds pit lane time from the entry cones to the exit cones. That, if Dickinson does the exact same, that's going to put him back to third, if not fourth, I think, here. Prince Adam has a rough go coming onto pit road, so that's going to be his final stop in the 777. Adams had a bit of a roller coaster of an evening here at Indy, I think, Gareth. He's done well, made some good passes, and then had those little mistakes that kind of undo the work for the pilot of that BMW. But is he boxing here, or is he serving a penalty?
Oh, he's
No, he is
definitely
going to
boxing.
pit.
Yeah, he's one of those drivers that has routinely he finds himself getting better every week, and then he just has a moment that unfortunately just makes him lose the time that he gains every week, and then he keeps on finding himself. So it's really the consistency that Prince Adam is really needing to work on, I think, a little bit more than anything else in terms of his racing game. But in terms of flat-out pace, he has shown quite a few different laps of really phenomenal times. It's just the consistency that he will need to iron out to make himself get into that top 10 in the future.
Yeah, it's all about consistency. And so many of these drivers have grown over the seasons, if not just this season. So right now the fans are actually taking bets in the spectator side on YouTube. And let us know what you think. Right now, Bozak and Nodovan getting the nod to most likely to pick up a win. And Nodovan is closing the gap here to Bozak within a second, so almost within striking distance. Now, the two teammates, I don't predict they're going to battle too hard here. I think there might be some team orders at play and a very polite gentleman's racing going on. But when it comes down to it, you know, with 10 minutes, five minutes or so left to go, I wouldn't be surprised to see the gloves come off amongst the teammates and maybe see a battle here for the lead.
Yeah, definitely could. I mean, you know, as you said earlier on, and as we know, sometimes you just get into the zone as well. You don't really just get into it. You know, as a racing driver, first and foremost, you're a competitor, and obviously, when you're a competitor,
I'm sorry
Prince
to
Adam
interrupt
went off
you.
track.
Prince Adam had a big send against Book. Totally missed it. Watch this one into turn one, Gareth.
Oh, yep. Just a little bit of a swing and a miss once again. And that comes back to what we were saying earlier. You know, Prince Adam just has those small moments where he doesn't get involved in anyone, which is the major thing. But just needs to work on those small itty bitty moments. And once he does that, he should find himself in a fantastic position in the future. But now we're still looking back at the battle for probably the lead. I mean, Dickinson is out front. He's going to try his best to gain as much of a gap as possible. But I don't think he's going to be able to hold on to it once the fuel stint comes into play. And these two teammates, like you said, or like I was just about to say, you know, as a competitor, as a racing driver, which is what you are, you know, you're going to be going for that win regardless. You're going to see your teammate there. You're going to see another racer that you're battling. You're going to think, oh, maybe if I let him go here, maybe I'll let him go there, and, you know, I'll pick up the championship points, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, you're sitting behind a car. You've been sitting behind the wheel. You've been working your butt off for an hour and 46 minutes. The checkered flag is coming out. You see an opportunity to get that trophy at the end, and that's what you're going to go for.
Now, I agree. Racers race, and that's what I think is going to happen. And especially with these guys, everybody inside the top 5, top 6, very equal on pace. But we've got an off track for Dickinson, the race leader.
No.
Oh, no, Dickinson's going to throw it away in the 64. A huge mistake there. I'm not sure if another driver was involved in that. We get the replay queued up. Dickinson, he just loses the back end. Around he goes in the Porsche. Almost gets high centered there.
Yeah, very, very nearly got stuck on that little mound of grass there on the exit. I want to see, Garlic Dog also had a separate incident. I thought they might have been involved because they both had an incident very similar times, but different part of the track. Also had his own little moment, gets back going again. But you're right, Dickinson, really, I mean, that's eaten into his time big time. He's lost what? Almost 10 seconds from that spin.
Yeah, I agree. Bozak dipping some tires off, but holding on to it. I think Bozak and Nodovan smell blood in the water as Dickinson comes down pit road for the final time. That is going to put Bozak and Nodovan first and second here. Simply Steve might be able to snag a podium in that number 1 machine. We've got less than 15 minutes left to go here, Gareth, and we've got a race underway. Sector also down pit road, the number 95 machine. Bozak taking over the race lead, his teammate Nodovan in tow. I think what's going to happen here, these two are going to work together, stay in the draft until about 5 minutes left to go. And I think, I'd like to think we're going to see a heated battle for the lead, but how ecstatic would these two teammates be if they can sweep those top 2 spots together with relatively clean race cars? It's the end of the season, the final crown jewel, and these guys are putting on a show as Dickinson just had terrible luck in and out of his pit stall in 9 seconds. It's Bozak, Nodovan, Simply Steve eating my dust up in the 4th, and Dickinson now finds himself the outside looking in that 5th place spot.
Yeah, and rapidly approaching his you-know-who, but he's not going to get there as he's going to be a little bit further back on track. But yeah, absolutely, just one of those things, and I did jinx him earlier on. I very much apologize for that, but I did say, you know, that seems to be a bit of a moment with Dickinson as well. He seems to be so consistent, so fast, so up front for the majority of the race that he just has these small moments, and they're usually done really close to the end of the race, and they are absolutely brutal, and they cost him dearly. So it's just a really, really sad event that's happened to him there. But like you were saying with Bozak and Nodovan, they're going to be in a strong fight, and it's one of those things, as a teammate, you don't want to wreck the other teammate, absolutely, but you want to give them all, and you want to prove to yourself and to your teammate that you're just a bit better than him. And I got to be honest, it's not the nicest thing, but as a driver, as a competitor, that's the first thing that goes to your mind is, I want to beat this guy. So I'm thinking that Nodovan, in his mind, is going to be thinking, right, I had the fastest lap in practice 3, and time to prove that that wasn't a fluke.
Yeah, and I think Nodovan, like you said, 10 minutes left to go, a little bit less now. He's going to wait until the very last moment to fully show his hand against Bozak before we see a big lunge from that 128 machine. Doesn't want to show the cards too early, but he's going to get a big run here in the little brief backstretch there. I'm interested to see what type of run Nodovan's going to get out in the start-finish line as well. Let's see what he does here. He seems to be getting great corner exit in that machine, but it looks like Bozak holding on to it. I mean, Nodovan very slowly closing the gap, gaining about 600-7 hundredths. I don't know. I mean, Nodovan, unless he's got something else left in reserve here and he's just biding his time, I think Bozak's in a good spot to defend against his teammate as well. And Bozak does have the advantage knowing I don't think Nodovan's going to put both of our cars in a precarious spot. Now, that could work against him if Nodovan goes for a big send late here in the race, but I think we're going to very much have a very good battle in these final laps.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself. These two drivers have been really, this race, pretty quiet. I mean, they've been up in the front of the field towards the front end, but they haven't been involved in too many issues. They've just been clicking off laps, and like you said so many times, and you say so many times, it's consistency, and that's exactly what can do it. Not even just pushing a little bit too wide, dipping 2 tires in the grass, and Bozak with a massive advantage, gaining a full second from that.
Yeah, now Bozak's got 1.8 up over his teammate. We're going to find out here in the next half lap or so. Let's see by the halfway mark of lap 81. Is Donovan going to close that gap at all, or is he going to hang right at that 1.8 second gap?
Hang on
Now,
a minute,
Bozak is going to run into... Yep, go ahead.
Sorry about that, but I just saw a Dickinson closing in on Eat My Dust, and he was
within a
closing
second.
very quickly. He is on an absolute mission. And look at that, Eat My Dust trying to break the draft, not wanting Dickinson anywhere near him. But I'm not sure you're going to be able to hold him up, Eat My Dust. You can try your heart out, but Dickinson is going to be very... Well, I guess he's going to be seeing red as he is desperate to make up for that earlier spin.
That is a ton of ground Dickinson gained in just the last quarter of a lap here against the number 24 of Eat My Dust. I mean, yeah, closed the second and a half here, I think. So Dickinson ripping in that 64 machine. Eat My Dust, I think, is going to have his hands full once Dickinson catches up, because Dickinson is not taking any prisoners and no quarter here. Now, with about 6 minutes left to go, barring a mistake in the top 3, I don't think a podium is much of a possibility here for Dickinson. I know he wanted to end up here in the interview room, the final race of the season, to lock up a champion, but he's about to show Eat My Dust and the viewers at home why he's going to be taking home a #1 plate at the end of this thing. And Gareth, what just happened up front?
Oh, Bozak goes for a spin. That's what happened up front, almost losing a spot to Nodovan for sure. And Simply Steve definitely catching up, but we're going to have to take a look at that, because what just happened there?
I saw him approaching traffic, but I don't think he was close enough for that to be a factor. Looks like he's just going to lose it in turn 1. And his teammate hard on the binders. There goes Nodovan, and Bozak has compounding issues there, trying to get that machine sorted, but just like that, Simply Steve finds himself in the hunt for second.
Yeah, this we see this time and time again with endurance racing, and especially the Crown Jewel events. That extra half hour really taking its toll on these drivers. When you have no relief driver, you've been at the wheel for that long, it starts to take its toll on your concentration, not just physically, but also mentally. And as I say, we see that time and time again. Bozak's down pit lane.
Well, it's got to be a penalty, right, Gareth?
I assume it'd have to be. I don't know how else.
There was no contact. There was no damage. Bozak might be serving a drive-through here. That is going to be the most excruciatingly long pass-through of Bozak's life. Simply Steve up into second. Eat My Dust up into third. Dickinson in fourth.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Absolutely.
You know who's down pit road?
He's gone down pit road. He's actually stopping. So Bozak actually did stop, so that's not a penalty. Maybe ran out of fuel. Ooh, I have to wonder.
What's this mean for Nodovan and Simply Steve and Eat My Dust? 1, 2, 3. They're all on a lap 65 pit stop.
That's very interesting. We did see Nodovan saving some fuel behind Bozak, so potentially got a little bit more in the tank. But I was certain that these drivers would be able to make it to the end, unless Bozak had something else happen we aren't aware of. But I mean, now look at this. So Bozak is on the hunt for Joshua Spears for 5th. Eat My Dust is still trying to hold on to 3rd from Dickinson, who tries round the outside and is going to make it stick. What a move.
Yeah, that was brilliant by Dickinson. Now, Sam Renner's letting us know that he thinks Bozak came in a lap or two prior than Nodovan, but my live timing showed they were on the same fuel strategy, so maybe something was amiss with what I'm getting from the broadcast, but let's look. Is Eat My Dust going to return the favor as Dickinson guards the inside line to turn one? Eat My Dust is going to try the long way around, tries for a high-low switchback, stays alongside Dickinson here, but Dickinson in that 64, he's got some legs underneath him, pulls a few tenths back to his advantage, and I'm going to eat my words. I thought Dickinson was out of a podium contention here, but with Bozak's misfortune, Dickinson right back in the mix and not taking any grief here. But Eat My Dust, he's staying right there with what has been the historically fastest driver of the race, and trying not to let Dickinson get too far away here.
Absolutely, and Penny has just joined the chat as well, so nice to have you, and I'm sure you'll be loving what you're seeing out on track, but it's very close as Eat My Dust once again goes for a lunge. He does not want to give up that third place, and who can blame him? And it looks like he's not going to be able to do anything, but with the draft into turn one, who knows? And I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to send it. Look how close they are together.
Oh, it's going to be
Dickinson
good.
is not going to let him have it, but it's going to be bloody close. Oh, he's going to have to take the outside line because Dickinson doesn't want him to have it. Ooh.
Yeah, but that's going to, look at him go. That's going to set him up for the next left-hander. But then it's back to Dickinson's advantage. Eat My Dust is here to party, taking the spot back over from Dickinson. What an intense battle for third. And I'm trying to see, is that lap traffic behind them? Surely lap traffic knows this is a battle for the final podium spot and won't interject themselves in the party as look at Dickinson pulls out of the draft.
Yeah, Dickinson's going to try something around the outside here. Typically not a great passing maneuver. Had to jump on the brakes. I'm not sure if you saw that, but was heavy on those brakes behind Eat My Dust as he closed the door on Dickinson. Still fighting for this third place spot as I believe, where is Nodovan out on track? Yes, we're heading to the final lap of the race. So this is going to come down to the wire, and Bozak is also right behind Joshua Spears for the 5th place spot. We saw Book and Sector were also fighting it out for a little bit there for 11th, so there's still battles going on everywhere, but we're focused in on 3rd because what is going to happen, we just don't know as this is the final lap of the race.
Nicolator has the best seat in the house right here. He is right behind this battle for 3rd, and I think Nicolator has realized how intense this battle is. He had great pace. He just came out of pit road and that number 5 Ferrari, but I think doesn't want to get himself mixed up in this one because Eat My Dust, Dickinson, the gloves are off. The final lap of the race not even looking good here to tie off the season with a win, but this has been some of the best clean racing I've seen in a while, and we're 2 hours in and these guys are going at it.
Oh, absolutely. This is the best part of endurance racing, if you ask me. When you've had such a long race, so many battles, and then all of a sudden it all comes down to the final event. It looks like Nodovan's going to take home the lead and does take the win, so Nodovan gets it done. Simply Steve will have 2nd, but Eat My Dust and Dickinson still side by side. It looks like Eat My Dust just sending it a little bit deeper. Dickinson trying desperately to set up a run to the final corner, but I don't think it's going to happen. Eat My Dust is going to hold on to 3rd as they come to the checkered flag. What a drive.
Man, what a race from these guys. Nodovan, Simply Steve, Eat My Dust. There's nobody inside the top 5 here that did not absolutely earn it on this one.
And Bozak just could not catch back up to Spears, was too fast after whatever happened to Bozak. So that is about as unfortunate as you can get, but what a race, what an event, James. That was absolutely phenomenal. I'm so glad you could join me here for it.
Yeah, that was great racing amongst these guys. I'm really glad we were able to get to it. I mean, that was a great show. And that's my favorite part, truly, about calling the endurance stuff here at J2ICS. The first hour and 45 minutes does not dictate what that top three is going to be at the end of this thing. And man, just what a great race from these guys.
That was absolutely phenomenal, and we can't wait to get the drivers in because I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about. But before then, take a quick look at the results. Please let this work for me for once. It does not look like it wants to. Once again, so I'm not sure what's going on with the timing software here. But oh well, we'll do it the old-fashioned way. And we're showing that Nodovan did take the win with Simply Steve in second, Itmadust in third, Dickinson in fourth with Joshua Spears in fifth. Bozak, You Know A Who, Void, Bar South, and Nicolator will round out your top 10. It was an absolutely fantastic race. Let's get the drivers in here, though, for the first person we want to talk to, and we are desperate to talk to Eat My Dust. Let's get him in here. I think I just pulled him in. There he is. Eat My Dust, welcome to the booth. What an amazing race from you.
Oh yeah, great, great to be up here, Gareth. Really, really good way to round out the season. I think Steve and I took the team championship back with that too.
I tell you what, that was absolutely phenomenal. I can't say it in any other way because it was just fantastic, especially right at the end. Your defending, I've said it so many times, but your defending is almost unparalleled. I mean, it's just crazy. And when you got passed by Dickinson, did you think you were going to get it back, or were you pretty much sure that he was just going to run away from you?
I was pretty sure he was going to be gone. Thanks for the defense compliment. I appreciate it. But I had been running basically the whole race in map 2 and lift and coast and fuel save to make sure that we got the fuel numbers that we needed. And when he came back out of the pits a couple seconds behind me, I thought that was it with 8 laps to go. But I guess I was just running a decent amount less wing than he was because he wasn't able to close in very much on the draft. And even in map 2, I was able to stick with him, which allowed me to dump it back into map 1 for the last lap and stay ahead.
Yeah, it looked like it was just an absolute fight, and I got to be honest, it was I what do I say? But yeah, it was amazing, and as it's always a pleasure to talk to you, man. And I said I was talking to you a little bit before the show, and you said that you weren't extremely happy with this track, or you need to adjust the wing a little bit. But I tell you what, it seemed to have paid off.
I think it worked. Yeah, I jumped in. I got about 20, 25 laps of practice in a daytime. Go to the race start in a pitch black. I hadn't run anything at night. So I was okay there for a little bit behind Josh, and then he pulled away, and I didn't have the headlights, and I dropped a bit back through the field, and that was kind of it for me, I thought. But then as we were going and people were pitting there 2 and 3 and 4 laps before Steve and I we realized we had something there.
Yeah, all right. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you as always. But Itmadust, finally welcome to the booth. It's been too long since I've last talked to you. Who would you like to give a shout out to? Friends, family, sponsors, the floor's yours. What an amazing finish, man.
Thanks, Gareth. Shout out to you for stepping in and wrapping up our season. I thought I saw James up in there too, so thanks for him for jumping out. Shout out to Steve, man. He killed it this season, and happy I was able to help support him. Shout out to my partner for letting me race on Wednesday nights, and shout out to my dad who's been tuning into the streams.
Right, sounds good. We'd like to give them a shout out too, and enjoy yourself. Have a fantastic vacation, and we look forward to bringing you back up into the booth potentially next season.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks, Gareth.
All right, that was Eat My Dust, bring it home in the third spot. Next up, Simply Steve, who brought it home in second. I'm going to hand you over, Simply Steve, to our man in, well, I don't know where I was going with that once again, but I'll hand you over to James East either way.
All right.
What an introduction. Steve, great to talk to you again, man. What a great result. You and the teammate put on a show, and in typical J2ICS fashion, it seemed like it all came down to the last 10 minutes or 5 minutes so of this crown jewel.
Yeah, I mean the fuel battle, like I ran the numbers before and knew it was going to be a really tight fuel race, and we ran it kind of by the numbers. It was a little tight, but yeah, not even obviously like not starting on the grid. It was kind of like a wild card, and so yeah, I was trying to push as much as I could at the end to keep up and maybe challenge for the win, but not even just had huge pace today, so I couldn't get the win, but a double podium for the team is I don't know what the points are, but it's really good. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was a ton of fun for us to watch up here in the booth, and we did wonder, was there any team orders in play coming to those last 10 minutes before we saw a few mistakes kind of separate everybody, but were you guys going to be battling for the lead, or was the plan to play it safe and just agree on a first-second finish and wrap up those points?
I mean, I think I was closer in the driver's standing, so, like, he didn't have as much to gain as I did, but, like, I feel like we didn't really have any real discussion about it. It was like, "All right, let's just keep going. The fuel is tight. Like, this isn't all in the it's not in the bag until it goes official, right?" So, we were, I think, on pretty cautious on that side. So, and Lucas was fighting off Sean there at the end, which is huge.
Yeah, a ton of fun for us up here in the booth. I know it was for the fans at home. And Steve, I've seen you driving a bunch of stuff in the past, but always cool seeing you out on track in the GTEs. And before I let you go and unwind after that brutal 2 hours, who do you want to give a shout out to that helps make it happen for you?
I mean, shout out to Lucas. It's always a huge to have a great teammate in your back pocket, and yeah, just a great season overall. Like shout out to Erco, friends and family. Like if my girlfriend Natalie is watching, yeah, like we may not be the fastest team or the smartest team, but we're a crafty team. So
Well, and great looking as well, Steve. So good to have you up here, buddy, and looking forward to coming back out next season and seeing what you and the entire team can do.
thanks, man. Happy to be here. Thanks.
That was Simply Steve bringing it home in second. But now, Gareth, it's time for the top dog. We're going to get Nodovan up here in that 128 machine. And let me see if I can help you out. There we go. We've got Nodovan join us with a big win. And Gareth to handle that interview for you.
I'll try my best, but Nodovan, welcome up to the winner's circle. And I tell you what, that race was phenomenal. Talk us through from start to finish, because honestly, you just seem like you got into the zone for 2 hours straight and you just disappeared.
Yeah, it was hard to get into the zone after I was disconnected at the very start, but luckily I was able to get in before the race actually started. But unfortunately, I missed the start, so I had to start from pit lane. But after that, I just kind of really tried to get to the front as fast as I could, and we kind of knew it would be a fuel game, so initially I didn't really care about it. Then stint 3 came around, and I'm like, oh, I need to save a lot of fuel. So I think my average fuel consumption went from 2.2 to 1.7 in the last couple laps. So
Oh, that's actually incredible. That's incredible fuel saving. But I will ask, actually, just on that subject, do you know what happened to your teammate Bozak? Because after that spin and that incident, he came down pit road. We were wondering if he had a bit of a drive-through penalty, but he actually did stop in his pit stall. So did he run out of fuel right in front of you?
no, he didn't have enough fuel to get to the end. So after he spun, his tires were really hot. So I just told him to go down pit lane, let them cool down a little bit. So, but yeah, he tried to make it, but he couldn't quite do it.
I wonder if it was that little bit of draft that you got from him towards the end of the run really cemented your win. But I have to also just ask you, what was it like? I mean, do you notice that you're passing all the cars from when you start in pit lane to finishing first after 2 hours? Do you notice the overtakes that you make? Or a lot of them, from what I understand, were actually taking place when people were in the pits. So Did you have any idea that you were anywhere near the front until the last, I guess, the last quarter of the race, or did you always know that you were slowly gaining up the spots?
Yeah, I was gaining. I like to pay attention to the race, so I generally know what went on in the race. Like I know Sean, he spun it probably around T3 to T4, and that's why he dropped back so far. But yeah, I generally notice a lot of my overtakes. They started like catching groups of cars, and then as you get near the front, the lap times start tumbling down. So now you're not overtaking 3 cars in one lap. You're only taking like maybe 1 car in every 2 laps. But I definitely noticed I was coming up because I was paying attention. But yeah, it was pretty nice to come from the back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we will let you go, but before we do, open a bottle of champagne and let us know who are your friends, family, sponsors that you'd like to shout out. What a fantastic victory. It's absolutely incredible racing, man.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to shout out my teammate Bozak. He made the setup once again, and he's unfortunately he didn't quite get the result he wanted, but he was still up there on pace. So I'm pretty proud of him.
Right, sounds good. Well, again, we'll let you go. Make sure you celebrate as much as possible because you definitely deserve it after that win, and hopefully we see you next season.
Yeah, I hope to see you guys next week.
Oh, that's true. How you? There you go. We can do it real quick. What are your thoughts on Road Atlanta in the LMP3 next week?
Never driven it in an LMP3, but I love the track, so
Sounds.
it'll be a good one.
Yep, sounds good. That's all we need for the promo. All right. Well, we'll see you then, and good luck. And don't celebrate too hard because we'll need you to race again next week. Then
Yeah, have a great night.
you too. All right. That was Nodovan bringing it home in the top spot. Uh, Thank you very much for joining us, James East. Do you have anything to say to the fans before we let them go for the night and for, I guess, staying with us for the entire season of competition?
Just super appreciative to be a part of the J2ICS family on and off the track. Great folks, great racers, great fans all the way around, and just very glad and appreciative to be a part of this one.
Yeah, so am I. Couldn't have said it better myself. Nice way to wrap it up, James. So we will see you all. I don't think James will, but I definitely will see you all next week for the Sprint Series finale of Season 1 in 2024. And look forward to seeing you all same time, same place. I believe half an hour later than when this started is the usual event time. So we'll see you then. Have a good night and take care. As I said, see you later.